They say every neighborhood harbors that one overzealous enforcer who treats HOA rules like sacred law. But in ours, Doyle Mason elevated it to a whole new level of obsession. This guy patrolled the streets as if he carried an official badge, clipboard perpetually clamped under his arm, phone eternally poised to capture any perceived infraction. He wasn't voted in, wasn't hired, he simply declared himself the HOA's one-man army. And last week, he pushed his invasive antics too far, igniting a confrontation with Grandpa that would leave him literally shocked, and the entire block rethinking their silence. But hold on, before we peel back the layers of this escalating feud, drop a comment with the country you're watching from. Let's map out how far this tale of sweet revenge spreads across the globe. It all began with a faint, ominous creak from our backyard fence at the ungodly hour of 5:30 a.m., a sound that pierced the quiet dawn and set the stage for the chaos to come. I was still rubbing sleep from my eyes, clumsily pouring cereal into a bowl, when Grandpa, already settled in his weathered rocker on the porch, grumbled under his breath, "There he goes again, thinking he owns the place." Peering out, my heart skipped as I spotted Doyle Mason brazenly scaling our fence like some amateur intruder, his phone flashing as he documented Grandpa's prized tomato plants. He had the audacity to claim those vibrant veggies clashed with the community's so-called aesthetics. Imagine branding a 75-year-old veteran's harmless garden as a neighborhood blight. Fury bubbled inside me. I gripped the counter, ready to burst out and demand he back off. But Grandpa raised a steady hand, his voice a calm anchor in the brewing storm. "Patience, kid," he advised, eyes narrowing with calculated restraint. "Let a fool dig his own grave deep enough, and he'll bury himself without our help." That was Grandpa's philosophy, deliberate, unflappable, a stark contrast to Doyle's frantic, self-righteous zeal that had been building for weeks. This intrusion wasn't an isolated incident. It was the latest in a string of violations that had been ratcheting up the tension, each one more brazen than the last. Twice before, we'd caught Doyle lurking near our shed, his footsteps crunching suspiciously in the twilight, even jiggling the door handle as if hunting for hidden secrets. Grandpa had dutifully reported these encroachments to the HOA board, but President Linda Clay dismissed it with her saccharine grin, cooing, "Oh, Doyle's just overly enthusiastic. He truly cares about keeping our community pristine." Enthusiastic? The man was flagrantly violating North Carolina General Statute 14-159.13 on trespassing, crossing boundaries that no internal enforcement excuse could justify. Yet the HOA clung to loopholes, insisting it was all in the name of neighborhood harmony, leaving us simmering with unresolved frustration. Grandpa, never one to let injustice fester unchecked, dialed the sheriff's office next, and while the deputies expressed sympathy over the phone, they highlighted the murky legal waters, without catching Doyle red-handed and filing charges on the spot. It boiled down to a frustrating he said battle that could drag on indefinitely. That's when the real intrigue deepened, as Grandpa retreated to his garage workshop, his mind whirring with a plan that he kept shrouded in mystery, building anticipation with every passing hour. For the next 3 days, he tinkered away, humming faded country melodies that echoed through the house, while I shuttled him tools, wrenches, wires, insulators, my curiosity mounting but unanswered. By the 4th day, the transformation revealed itself. Our wrought iron gate now hummed faintly with a low-voltage electric wiring setup, meticulously installed to comply with every clause of the North Carolina Electrical Code, complete with proper markings to avoid any legal snags. Grandpa even affixed a glaring yellow sign that screamed, "Warning, Electrified Gate. Trespassers will be shocked," its bold letters impossible to miss, ensuring no one could claim ignorance. The stage was set, the trap legally sprung, but the waiting game stretched the suspense. Each quiet morning amplifying the question, would Doyle take the bait? And right on cue, as the first hints of dawn crept in, Doyle slunk back like a creature of habit, oblivious to the invisible barrier awaiting him. Grandpa positioned himself on the porch with his steaming black coffee, exuding an air of serene vigilance, while I hunkered by the window, my heart pounding in rhythm with the approaching footsteps. Doyle vaulted the fence with practiced ease, boots grinding into the gravel, his mutters about blatant violations carrying on the still air, inching closer to his undoing. The instant his gloved fingers latched onto the gate snap, a sharp jolt crackled through the wires, hurling him backward with a yelp that shattered the quiet like a startled hound. He flailed wildly, crashing into the dirt, then scrambled upright, limping frantically toward the street, his composure shattered. Grandpa remained statue still, a faint glint of satisfaction in his eyes as he murmured softly, "That, my boy, is the sweet sound of justice finally catching up." The zap lingered in the air, a pivotal turning point that left us breathless, wondering if this would finally curb Doyle's reign or merely fuel his fury. Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood, turning Doyle's humiliated limp down Maple Court into the hottest gossip, with whispers and stifled chuckles building a wave of schadenfreude that heightened the drama. Neighbors clustered in driveways, exchanging knowing glances and barely contained laughter as the once intimidating self-proclaimed patrol tried desperately to rewrite the narrative, claiming Grandpa's setup was a hazardous trap. But the truth was seeping out. Most folks had endured Doyle's invasive habits firsthand, snooping in backyards uninvited, measuring lawns with absurd precision, even peering through windows after dark like a shadowy vigilante. He was no hero. He was a persistent pest, and this shocking rebuke felt like long overdue payback. Yet the uncertainty loomed. Would he slink away defeated, or retaliate with even greater venom? Doyle, predictably, refused to fade quietly into the background, escalating the conflict by summoning an emergency HOA meeting by noon, ratcheting up the stakes and drawing the entire community into the fray. I accompanied Grandpa to the gathering, bracing for volatility, but nothing prepared me for the theatrical spectacle that unfolded in that stuffy room. Linda Clay presided at the table's head, her pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights, that artificial smile fixed like a mask. Doyle slumped dramatically beside her, his arms slung for maximum sympathy, jabbing an accusatory finger at Grandpa as if unveiling a master criminal. "This man," he thundered, voice quivering with feigned outrage, "is a menace to our safety. He's rigged a deadly electrified weapon. That gate could have ended me." The accusation hung heavy, thickening the air with tension, but Grandpa stayed unruffled, sliding a crisply folded permit across the table with deliberate calm. "That, Mrs. Clay," he intoned evenly, "is a state-issued electrical permit, fully compliant, clearly marked, and backed by law." He paused, letting the weight sink in, "and I posted the mandatory warning, trespassers beware." Linda squirmed, attempting to deflect with platitudes. "Legal or not, it's overly aggressive, clashing with our harmonious community spirit. The HOA reserves the right to oversee such installations." Grandpa's tone graveled deeper, commanding attention like a gathering storm. "Oversee, fine. But trespass? Absolutely not. North Carolina's trespassing statute criminalizes unauthorized entry on private land. Doyle's done it thrice now. I'm through with gentle reminders. Next violation, and I'll let the courts deliver the verdict." The room's atmosphere shifted palpably, a ripple of agreement stirring among the once silent attendees. One woman broke the hush. "Doyle invaded my yard last month to nitpick my shrubs. I thought I was alone in this." Another voice joined. "He snapped pics of my kids' bikes. dubbing them an eyesore. It's gone too far. With each revelation, Doyle's flush deepened, the tide of opinions swelling against him, forcing Linda to hammer her gavel in a bid for order. This isn't an accusation forum. We're here to address Mr. Thompson's. But Grandpa interjected smoothly, his words slicing through. No, ma'am, we're addressing Doyle's unchecked obsession. You've enabled his delusions of ownership, and now he's tasted the consequences of overstepping. If you're wise, you'll rein him in before more fences get crossed. The meeting dissolved into murmurs. The suspense now electric. Had this public unmasking humbled Doyle? Or would it provoke a bolder strike? If this HOA saga has you hooked so far, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales of karma in action, because the twists are just ramping up, and you won't want to miss how this powder keg ignites. Doyle, stung by the exposure, refused to lick his wounds in peace. Instead, he intensified his harassment, circling our block in his battered pickup. 4 straight days like a predator stalking prey, slowing deliberately by our driveway as if daring the gate to yield. Grandpa observed it all from his porch perch, thermos in hand, his gaze unwavering and predatory. The unspoken standoff building an almost unbearable tension. On the third night, as midnight cloaked the neighborhood in shadow, a suspicious rustle jolted me awake, pulling me to the window where I glimpsed Doyle's silhouette, flashlight beams slicing the dark, bolt cutters glinting menacingly in his grip. He was escalating to outright sabotage. Grandpa, ever vigilant, was already stationed in his rocker, a small remote concealed in his palm. "Watch closely, kid," he whispered, focus laser-sharp on the intruder. As Doyle's cutters bit into the steel zap, the wires hummed to life at Grandpa's click, surging a jolt that convulsed Doyle's frame like he'd seized a swarm of angry bees. He howled, tools clattering away, collapsing into the mud in a flailing heap. Grandpa savored his coffee nonchalantly. Trespassing yet again, he noted dryly, then aimed his phone, capturing the entire debacle in crystal clear 1080p. Every stammer, every profane outburst, every muddy slip preserved for posterity. But Doyle's defiance peaked. Undeterred, he fumbled for his phone and dialed 911, bellowing hysterically, "Attempted murder. This psycho's electrocuting me with his illegal rig." Within 5 agonizing minutes, sirens wailed, red and blue strobes flooding the yard. Like a scene from a thriller, officers emerging with hands hovering near holsters, assessing the chaotic tableau. Doyle caked in filth, quaking and clutching his limb. Versus Grandpa, the epitome of composure on his porch. "Sir," an officer addressed Grandpa cautiously, "is there an active electrical system on that gate?" "Indeed," Grandpa affirmed steadily. "Fully registered, permitted, warned, and documented. Here's the proof." He proffered the laminated permit without rising, then surrendered his phone. The incriminating footage replaying Doyle's illicit entry, tampering, and self-inflicted shock. The officers viewed it stoically, one finally deadpanning. "So, you trespassed intentionally?" Doyle blustered. "No, it was an official HOA inspection." The retort came swift. "At midnight, armed with bolt cutters? That's no inspection, that's breaking and entering." The law's clarity cut through the night like a blade. Doyle stood guilty of criminal trespassing, vandalism, attempted theft, and topping it off, a false emergency report that wasted resources. Charges piled up inexorably as the cuffs clicked shut right before the humming gate. Doyle ranting about grand conspiracies and Grandpa's alleged peril to society, his pleas falling on deaf ears. Neighbors, drawn by the spectacle, didn't murmur in secrecy anymore. They erupted in applause, a collective release after months of endured tyranny. Grandpa reclined further, nodding my way with quiet triumph. "Sometimes, son," he reflected, Justice requires just a spark of electricity to ignite. Doyle, sweat-soaked and defeated in the cruiser's back, watched his self-forged empire crumble, his makeshift badge seized. His authority evaporated. That gate he'd arrogantly challenged had become his undoing, proving that when you tangle with a man like Grandpa, you don't merely lose the skirmish. You ignite the spark that raises your entire HOA facade to the ground.